I'm Maria Green, and I'm going to do an unplanned spread in my art journal. And what I'm doing is I just pick any colors that I like and go for it. Whatever takes or tickles my fancy, that's what I'm doing. And I'm tending to use a lot of different marks and shapes. I use a lot of circles, squares, rectangles, triangles. So it is a kind of a childlike way to express without having any idea what's going to happen next and just having fun. There's nobody standing beside me and judging and saying that it's ugly. But it takes some courage to just see what happens in the painting process, because basically it's not something I'm trying to paint. Excuse me, like a house or a landscape. It's more of a feeling and choices coming from my inner urge. So I found I use a lot of squares, rectangles. Even though it is unstructured painting, it becomes structured because of all the geometrical shapes. Also, you're limited to the size of the paper, otherwise the lines might go much farther. I have painted this style on many large pieces of poster boards, and I keep adding boards to want to make them actually giant, see where the marks actually end up in their full glory. I'm switching my brush in the water. I'm sorry about the noise. So I guess you can call this an intuitive painting. At the same time, it's it becomes doodles the more I use marks. So I'm using acrylic paints, and I have also permanent markers in different colors. I always use permanent markers so that I can paint on top without them smudging. So I have dedicated this one journal to abstracts and doodles and this type of painting. And the more I paint whatever comes, my style seems to evolve. The fun part is that you can always feel your own energy in the work, because you're not trying to paint like somebody else. And it's raw, it comes without any kind of plan or struggle. So I'm using quite a bit of markers, and they are more limited than paint because of the nibs and the narrow reach that they really have. So I called this painting Doodle Mania because at the end, as you will see, it actually really ended up being a doodle painting. I doodle when I talk on the phone a lot, but usually with a like a ballpoint pen. With a pen you can't really cover these huge areas, but the same marks show up. Like a lot of flowers, round circles, doodles, like scalloped edges, paisley type leaves, and then the squares and other written doodles that I then fill in with color maybe, or draw a line around. I like to paint with my fingertips too, because you can really feel the paint. The reason this becomes a rather long video is because since I don't know what I'm doing, I can't just stop and pick it up later, except for where I'm painting larger pieces of the paper. At this point, I would say I really don't care for this piece, but the courage comes in where you stick with it. You stick with it to the end. And I sat quite a lot of time just staring at the painting, which doesn't show up here, seeing as I have to limit the time. But sometimes I had no clue what to do. But if I see one area that I could work on, I would do that. And the thing is to just paint anyways, because even if it gets messed up, it can usually be fixed. I've learned that if I want to save a painting and I really make a bad area that can't be fixed easily, I just glue some paper over it and make it a mixed media where I paint on top of the paper. So I keep asking myself, now what? So I decided to try some Neo colors too, the water soluble crayons, just for the heck of it. It gives more of a watercolor effect. As you can tell, I like bright colors. I have all the bright colors in my paint stash, but I do have some darker, some burnt umbers and dark grays and black, and of course some other type browns and beiges. But I always liked really bright colors. I am basically a pretty happy person, and I think that bright colors really show that. Art really is an exploration, because you move from one style to another, maybe, if you're like me anyways, and trying different things constantly just because of wanting to find out what it's gonna look like or how it ends up. There are many happy mistakes, many happy discoveries in this kind of painting process. Here I'm filling in some with a marker. I'm using many of the Elmer's paint pens. And I'll also use Deco Color, which is an oil-based permanent marker. It does smell pretty bad, though, so I try to avoid it. Also use Pit pens, the white Pit pens from Faber-Castell, and same for the color the brush markers. They are great and they last forever. I love it when I find pens that I like in markers. And I've tried many that I didn't like. And I like my black permanent marker. It's good for everything. Now this painting has become a real mess, in my opinion. But it's oh well. No, I won't give up until I am done. So I added on some big piece of paint over on the other side, and here I'm putting down some purple, dark purple. Those two colors remind me of upstate New York in the fall, the ragweed and the asters in the fields. Here I went a little nuts and did just a purple circle around on the other side. I also had added a few spirals with my StazOn black ink that's also permanent. Every layer usually shines through a little bit, so it adds interest to the piece to just do many layers without trying to mess them up. Now I'm at a point here where I absolutely pretty much hated this piece. So here comes the universal remedy, which is white, titanium white. So I decided to tone down some of the paint. It is sometimes hard to paint over what you already painted, but that's the whole thing of following what you feel like you need to do with the art. It usually gets uglier before it gets pretty. That is, if it ever gets really pretty. Here I wet a tissue and just evened out the paint a little. So I did not like that side either, so I said I'm gonna put on just some white paint with an old credit card. And here I have some, I guess it's umber. I mean, I can't think of the name of it right now. Now I'm picking back out some of the details that I already had before I painted everything white. So that adds more layers. Here comes a rectangle. I really like rectangles. I'm using that Faber-Castell Pit Pen brush marker, which is an excellent marker. It comes in a whole bunch of colors. You can buy them maybe 7 at a time as a kit. Sometimes I just have to let go and say this is like what it is. And that's what it ended up being. You can't, it's like the painting, just say, okay, that's what it is. Even if it is ugly and doesn't make any sense. The whole thing is about expressing, just expressing in the moment. Nothing else. I have some other pens called Perma-Pow. Really like their black version of those. I have a whole set of those paint markers. I only used 2 brushes. They were pretty small, but of course you can use any type or size brush that you want. Here's a big white pit pen marker from Faber-Castell. It works pretty good. If you want a very sharp white, you have to fill in the area a few times to make it strong. It is permanent. Here I'm just embellishing whatever is there. I don't think this would, win any awards, but it is fun. You wonder what a psychologist would make out of all these doodles. But do I care? No. I decided to put on some washi tape. Here I have one that is yellow, if I could find where it starts. I'm using some glue stick at the ends just to make sure that it stays put. And I really like this kind of a zigzag. I think it is a Martha Stewart, but I could be wrong. And here I had a little paisley type. Tape, but I didn't see much of a space to put it. So I decided to write on the yellow tape, "This does not need to be judged." So that's the whole point. No one needs to judge this piece of art or any art that we do. It's all what we do in the moment. This was just what came out in the time that I made this, and it made me happy. It just didn't. I can't say that I am totally in love with it, but I made it with love. So I added on a little red heart just to remind myself of the love that went into it. So I thank you so much for watching, and I hope that you try some daring maneuvers in your journals. It doesn't matter how it comes out. Nobody needs to judge. Thank you.